Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of Trench Talk with me Xander.
Me, James.
And our special guest today, Dr Simon Roffy of the University of Winchester. Hello, Simon.
Hi.
Okay.
I think the best way to start this is simply by asking you, what got you interested in archaeology?
Well, I think if I think back, it was the mystery of the past. I really used to be inspired and intrigued by the past, particularly the medieval period, particularly medieval religion and belief. Things like monasteries and churches really got me inspired, and that's really how I got into archaeology. I liked history, but I really wanted to get my hands on things, really wanted to experience them, and archaeology was the way to do that.
The physical side of the past being archaeology is something that gets a lot of people interested in the whole thing. That was one of the things that got me hooked, actually. So answering my second question already, your favourite period is the medieval period, or
medieval period? Yeah, but particularly the later medieval period, right about the Norman conquest to the Reformation.
Okay. You have your trowel with you, as we're moving into the like you said, the hands-on side of things.
Yeah.
Is that your first trowel? I don't think it is.
No, it isn't. I don't know how many trowels I've had. I lose them. I don't have this. And a lot of archaeologists have this attachment to their trowels, and I know that some really like to work with them over the years to get them really small, because it looks like they're particularly experienced. But I don't have that sort of need to do that, really. I just use whatever's there. It's a tool. So I put them down. I lose them. I get another one. That's the way I am. I'm more like that with a lot of things, actually. But trowels, yeah.
Is the trowel your favourite archaeological tool?
I'd say my favourite archaeological tool is actually my senses. I mean, it sounds a bit.
Okay.
I suppose it sounds a bit sort of trite to say that, but I mean, we take a trowel, and the trowel is really just the conduit, between the past and how we react with that. So, and as you know, when we use the trowel, we can pick up changes in texture. We can pick up the different sounds that the trowel would make. So really, it's just a way of communicating between the senses and the archaeology, and even things like archaeological theory, phenomenology, things like that, experiencing. What do we see? What do we feel about buildings? You go into a medieval church, and one can use one's senses to pick up quite a lot. So I'd say my favourite archaeological tool is my senses. But I suppose more practical terms, I would also say the pencil, because I enjoy recording. I love recording, like drawing things.
See, we were talking about this earlier, trying to kind of guess what you would say, and we thought you were going to go for students.
Right.
That's cool.
No, I don't see students as tools. I see them as colleagues. I mean, again, it's in a way we're all, from working down St Mary Magdalen, that we're all, even though there is a sort of loose hierarchy of students and teachers and project leaders and so forth, we're all in it together in the sense that we're all investigating the past. We're all working on our own little bits. You would probably know more about the area that you're working on than I would do, so that again, that's
because of the time we spent there.
Yeah, exactly, and the context sheets demonstrate that, because you're asked to add your interpretation of what you think is going on there, not my interpretation.
So on site, you sort of see yourself as the first among equals rather than anything else like that. So all archaeologists are equal, just some are more equal than others.
Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, in a way, yeah. I mean, I don't, both myself and my colleague Phil Martyr, we don't go for any of the sort of airs and graces. I mean, it has to be, someone has to be in charge, someone has to organise things, and and all that, of course. But we don't. Hopefully, we don't sort of abuse that. We like everyone to get what they can out of it, and we again, even though we're responsible for writing up the site and talking about the site and all this, we're always happy for students to do projects, dissertations, or whatever they want to do. So we don't have a sort of tight grasp on what we're doing.
Okay. We are talking a lot about digging in and of itself, but would you say that you prefer, you know, the digging side of things, or do you think you prefer the, like you say, you know, you like recording? Do you prefer the whole write up afterwards, the thought around it, rather than the actual process of discovering the?
I like it all, actually. And that's one of the things I like about archaeology, because it is varied, and you do have this, you know, you do have the process of uncovering, of discovery, the physical side of that as well. And then you have the recording, and particularly drawing, which I like, because through drawing, I find that one can record things, but also you're sort of analysing. You're intimate with what you're recording, so that acts as a sort of a context for interpretation as well. And the writing up, I do enjoy writing up, though. You know, to be honest, some archaeological reports can be quite dry. So. Yeah, so I like, you know, I do like writing things up. I like doing things for popular, you know, magazines, like the stuff I've done for Current Archaeology, because you can be a little bit more less, you know, be less academic in a sense, and be a little bit more creative with that. Though, of course, still using all the facts to hand. So I do enjoy that as well. So I enjoy all of it. I mean, it's varied. It's good.
What about your first dig? Or your first proper excavation?
Do you remember what it was or where it was?
Yeah, no, I do. My first digs, I was I was in the Royal Navy at the time, and at the time, I don't know if they do that now, but at the time they would give you money to retrain in something. So I was leaving, and they gave some money for me to go and work on 2 archaeological sites. And the first site was at Simon's Castle. In Wales, in the Welsh Pool. There's a medieval castle, and that was great. And then the second site was at Compton Basset in Wiltshire, and that was more of a sort of larger settlement project. So the Simon's Castle was based on a specific site, and the Compton Basset site was more of an area, a landscape. So I learned there the basic sort of skills of archaeology, excavation, but also surveying and recording. So they're my first two sites. And then then I sort of dropped it for a while, and I went travelling and so forth, and then come back and picked it up and went to university.
What about your first site that you kind of ran?
Oh yeah, that's quite an interesting thing.
Yeah, the first.
Like, Mary Mag isn't the first big project you've done, is it?
No, it isn't. No, the first it's the biggest project, I think, in terms of, if you look at it in terms of, sort of size of the project. But I think, well, the first project that I ran was when I was a MA student in London, and the site that I did for my undergraduate dissertation was Southwark Cathedral, which used to be the old priory of the Augustinian priory of St Mary Overy. And I did my dissertation on that, and through my dissertation I discovered that there was actually a lot more recording work that could be done. A lot of the earlier fabric of the had never been looked at. No, exactly. So I got together a small team, and a colleague of mine, Natalie Cohen, who's now the cathedral archaeologist, and we started our project, which was using students for a week, or with students for a week, doing building recording. And that was called SCARP, or Southwark Cathedral Archaeological Recording Project.
Okay.
So yeah, that was my first project.
Okay. What about your so that's where you did your dissertation. What about your like master's, PhD?
Well, my dissertation was focused on the chapel of St John, which was where the earliest fabric for St Mary Overy was. And then when I come to do my master's, I wanted to look at chapels more generally. And after sort of various communications with people, it's thought that looking at chantry chapels in particular would be a good area, because very little had been done in terms of archaeology, sort of dominated by historians and architectural historians. And there were certainly different ways of looking at these monuments. So that was become my master's, and then led into my PhD as well.
So you had a nice flow all the way through.
Yeah, which I think is essential, really. I mean, I was funded for it, and I think part of the attraction of this project was that there was a clear continuity between dissertation and master's and then PhD.
So you've made it very clear that your favourite kind of sites are these sort of religious, these monastic kind of things. What would your dream site that you could dig be? Like, would it even be in Europe? Because I mean, the relatively new module you started teaching, Archaeology of Buddhism. Would it possibly be a site in the East, a Buddhist site?
Yeah, ideally that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to, if I had a chance to, I'd like to work on an early Buddhist monastery. I mean, I like the idea of monasticism, both Western and Eastern. Something that inspires me personally, and I'd like to work on an Eastern example. I'd like to work on an early Buddhist site.
I suppose it'd be quite interesting to see whether examples of certain truths in Western monasticism are true on the ground of Eastern monasticism, whether it's a general kind of similar kind of feeling in the archaeology as well as on paper.
Yeah, well, certainly. I think there's lots of unexplored connections actually between Eastern monasticism and Western. I mean, after what is Eastern, what is Western? Because you look at the whole span of monasticism, across the South Asia, Middle East, into Eastern Europe, and there is certainly a geographical sort of link, ideologically as well. I think again, this is something that perhaps needs further exploration. But in terms of the monastic experience, how one would live in a community, particular rules, and how the structures, the space, the layout of these buildings reflect that ideology. And there's certainly a lot of comparisons.
Now you've obviously been on probably hundreds of all these excavations,
and this will, if this is what I think you're about to say, this will definitely link into the question I just asked as well.
Right, it will eventually.
Once you finish your preamble.
Have you found something that you've been particularly chuffed with, like completely over the moon, like artefact, structure-wise?
Yeah, I mean it's a question that's commonly asked, isn't it, of archaeologists? What was the best thing you found? Really, for me, I think it's more of a site. It is St Mary Magdalene, because I think that it is the earliest excavated leprosy hospital in Western Europe. It's probably one of the earliest excavated hospitals more generally. It's very, very extensively excavated, and I think for me that is something that I would see as perhaps one of my favourite things, because it's so early, because it's really gone beyond the history we had for that site. It's added to our understanding of early hospitals and what sort of form and layout they took. So I think, more widely that's what it is.
Okay.
In terms of particular artefacts, it's difficult because I run the project with Phil.
You don't get to be so hands-on.
Exactly. So can I claim an object as my own? But if I could cheekily claim an object as coming out of my project, I suppose, it would be the pilgrim badge that was found on one of
the Santiago.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's something that I think is very nice artifact with a sort of story behind it.
And you wish you could dip into the finds and whisk it home.
Well, yeah.
You've throughout the whole talk we've had, you've been quite sort of I'd say distant from the idea of an object as being an important thing, and that follows in with sort of Buddhist teachings of rejecting the material. But as archaeology is entirely about the material, it's about material culture, can there really be an archaeology of Buddhism?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't say Buddhism would reject material. It's accepting of material. It would reject dependence on the material, craving or pushing against the material world. So that's first of all. Can there be an archaeology of Buddhism? I think certainly there can be. I mean, I think we know so very little, for example, about the archaeology of Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha. We know so little about the Buddha before Buddhism. Very little about where he spent his time. The Pali Canon tells us all the places he visited, he lived, he taught. We actually know very little about these places, the world that he experienced. So, how is that important? It'd be interesting to reveal more about the context for the growth and development of
Like
Buddhism.
how the world is that creates this man who has this,
Yeah, exactly.
this epiphany.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what were the conditions that led him to this to develop this teaching? Yeah, so I think that's relevant and quite interesting.
Now, other than doing this podcast, is there anything you've regretted throughout your archaeological career?
I think I regretted. Nothing springs to mind.
Oh, okay.
No, not really. I don't know. I would say nothing immediate springs to mind. I don't think.
That's probably quite a good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You do seem like a man without care and without regret. So I think that happened.
No, I think it's easy. We have a society where in some ways we're sort of conditioned to be sort of careful of what we do, which we have to be. But in terms of feeling guilty about this or regretting this, or life could be this sort of sense of lack that lays behind everything that we sort of have. And therefore we regret things, but I think it's the wrong way to live a life, really, to live a life as it is.
Just, concentrate on the personal level.
Yeah, exactly. And it's things that, mistakes, I would have made things I would have done differently, of course, but I certainly don't regret them.
Yeah. Okay. Concentrating on that, social interaction. Do you have any nicknames that you know of among the students?
Not that I know of, no. Well, no. I mean, I know that a lot of students refer to me by my surname, Roffy, which is great, and a lot of my friends and even my wife actually call me my surname, and I quite like that. It's not really a nickname, but I suppose it's relatively unusual to be used. I don't know of any other. Do you know of any?
There's a few people that call you Papa Simon.
Certainly on site.
I don't know where that came from.
I hadn't heard that until some of the second years mentioned it.
Papa Simon. Okay, that's quite nice. As long as it's not Grandad Simon, it's fine.
Well, we can't tell whether you're grey under there. So.
That's true.
On that kind of note, what do you think ArcSoc does on a night out?
On a night out, bearing in mind, I suppose, a lot of the museums and normal institutions you might be visiting close, I'd imagine you have a bit of a social networking, maybe.
I think that's one way to put it.
Social networking with absolutely no alcohol. We do not condone as archaeologists. We are a sober lot.
But I think it is a really good thing, ArcSoc. I think it's a great way of getting all students for all the years to interact and to do things, whatever it is, socialising, visiting things, chatting, finds group. I mean, excellent.
Archaeology is a very social practice, both on the practical level, obviously, when you're digging. I mean, the whole point of this podcast is based on the idea of just having a chat when you're in the trench, but. It's also a level of networking for the future as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And archaeology, as opposed to something perhaps like history, relies on teamwork, relies on a sort of collegiate context where one is working with other people, socialising with other people. You work in teams on the excavation. Somebody barrows, somebody shovels, and even the whole process of post-excavation. You bring in various sort of specialists and so forth. As opposed to something which may be very individualistic, not necessarily healthy in some ways, perhaps it was taken to its extent. I think the good thing about archaeology is that it is very collegiate. Rather
similar to the monastic communities.
Yeah, maybe there is.
Focus your studies upon.
What about your kind of uni experience?
Oh yes,
because we talked about ArcSoc.
Yeah.
Where was it you went for your undergrad?
I went to the Institute of Archaeology, University College London. I did my undergraduate there, and then I did my master's there. Then I started my first year, my PhD there, and then my supervisor moved to Winchester, and I came along here to carry on here, finish it off here.
So did you slip right from PhD into a position here, or?
Yeah, I did because
wonderful.
it was lucky to come up. There was a space for somebody who taught medieval archaeology, and I just happened to be here. And
In
I
the
was
right place at the right time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I was doing little things already. I was helping out on modules. I was marking, so I was, I had some experience, and so I'd always say to people, if you're interested in teaching in archaeology, do as much as you can, make yourself as available as you can, and you just, building CVs up and all that is great, but also actually showing people you can do the job is important.
How much has the uni changed then since you first started here?
When I first came here, it was King Alfred's College.
Really?
Yeah.
What year was that, if you don't mind my asking?
Came in 2001.
Oh, really? I didn't realise that it had changed that recently.
Yeah, it was King Alfred's College. Then a few years after that, it changed to University College Winchester, because it was part of University of Southampton. In my PhD that was awarded during that time was awarded by the University of Southampton. And then we got degree awarding powers and so forth, and we become University of Winchester.
So it's actually quite a relatively recent university then, in terms of being able to award its own degrees.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know. I've been a student here for starting the third year, and I did not know any of that.
So I thought King Alfred's was quite a while ago. I didn't realise it was.
Yeah, I thought they'd stopped being King Alfred's in the 80s or the 90s or something.
Yeah.
No, it was then. But there is an exhibition at the moment at the I think it's at the Hampshire Record Office.
We should probably date this as the 8th of September 2015, in case people listen to this years from now. Yes, it's 1:30 p.m. 1:30 p.m. No one says that. All this
What
is gonna get
about
cut.
a most memorable moment throughout your archaeological
Oh
career?
yeah. Whether it's a personal moment or possibly the unveiling of something, or some research that came out that particularly interested you, maybe.
Gosh, most memorable moment. Well, the one that sprang to mind immediately, that might not technically be related, was being awarded my PhD at the Cathedral.
I think that counts.
Within a few months of my daughter being born, and
That's very
going out in
special.
possession with my daughter in my arms, and that's the thing that sprang to mind. So that's the most important.
That's
thing.
something that's never going to leave you.
Yeah.
Is your daughter interested in archaeology?
Well, they did the Archaeology Society at school, which was run by a couple of our ex-students, actually from here, who are now doing teacher assistant work there. Yeah, they did it for a little while, but they sort of, like many things, sort of stopped doing it. So no, they're sort of interested in it, but we'll see. I certainly don't
Push it upon them.
No, nothing pushing me.
We know that your dog Paddy is very much interested in the consumption of
Roof tile, yeah. Indeed, yeah.
Do you feel like bringing Paddy to site sort of does help the general atmosphere?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, he's got his own Facebook page, so I don't think he's really popular. But yeah, it does. I think it's a really nice thing to do. I mean, university as a whole actually recently introduced this policy where people can bring dogs to work once you fill out all the forms and so forth, which I think is great. I mean, it's why not? And I think dogs do lift an atmosphere. I mean, dogs and humans have been together for thousands of years. There's clearly a sort of connection there. But I think it does. I think it's a very human thing to do. I think having a dog running around is just. Not that there is an edge of sort of seriousness too much, but I think it just takes off an edge of seriousness, and it's I think it's
allows people to enjoy themselves more whilst they're learning. Working.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So will Paddy be making guest appearances in your lectures?
Maybe.
I did notice because Phil brought his dog on site one day.
Yeah,
that tiny little
that's
thing.
right. Yeah.
Everyone just turned over straight away. 10 minutes. No one was doing it.
Ignoring Paddy completely. The new dog's better.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. The novelty. Yeah. He's brought his dog into work a couple of times in the office.
And we brought it back to digging actually. So what would sort of more light-hearted towards the end of this podcast? What would your perfect 3 meals on a day of digging be? A breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner. What would that consist of?
Yeah, that's interesting. I really like Indian food, so it'd be something Indian. Yeah, I don't know, maybe sort of like a rice pudding type porridge thing for breakfast, and then lunch or dinner. I like a thali, with dals and vegetable curries and breads and things like that. Yeah.
Oh, it's because you're vegetarian, aren't you?
Yeah.
But is that something that you've taken on from?
Well, it was originally. Then I sort of stopped being a vegetarian because I do a lot of cooking at home, and I was cooking meat for the family. It's something that is in the world of Buddhism at the moment. There's lots of sort of arguments either way. I mean, some Buddhists are vegetarians, strictly vegetarians, some vegans, some aren't. And again, in Buddhist societies all around the world. So it's for me, it's not necessarily anything to do with any particular system or ideology. It's more of a personal choice. And there's been periods when I've gone back to eating meat. And periods when I just eat, I'm a vegetarian, so I try not to get too stuck on it. I mean, ideally, I'd live a vegetarian life, but life isn't.
It's something that you're not so fussed about keeping completely strict.
No, it's the idea behind it. I think it's the sentiment behind it. It's not to harm living creatures.
Okay. Well, that was the lunch and the dinner. Because you come home, a long hard day.
Anything with the family really. It's nice. It's nice. Find the children are sort of all sort of reasonably quiet, which is rare. But it's nice to come down and have a sort of family meal. Eating is very, it's a very communal thing, I think, and we sort of lose that very often. And it's nice to come back and have a table, have food, and chat, share it sort of thing. See it as an event rather than something practical, rather than just sort of, that'd be the ideal really.
If you were going out kind of drinking, obviously this would be on a Friday because you would never drink on a weekday. What would be your kind of go-to drink?
Drink,
like alcohol.
I like.
Not that we're condoning it.
No, indeed. No, I must admit, I do like real ales. I do like traditional beers and bitters and things like that. I do like that. I like the idea of having something that's traditional and been around for a while. Yeah, so that would be my ideal. Yeah.
Have you ever been a cider man at all, or?
Not really, no. I know you are, Xander, aren't you?
Yes, I am very much a cider drinker.
No, it's too sweet. I find it very sweet. But,
I can't handle it at all. I don't like the taste of it.
But then you drink Guinness, which is essentially mud in a cup.
That's good for you, though, isn't it? I know they advertise it as such, but apparently it's got a lot of iron.
Darker the beer, the healthier it is for you. If it is healthy at all. So.
Oh dear. Well, I think we're sort of drawing to a close of this episode.
I think now we've asked you all these questions. Is there anything you want to ask us?
Yeah. Okay. What led you to do a podcast? What's the idea behind this?
I think whether it started out as a joke or not, we just wanted to sit down. We thought it'd just be nice to sit down with people that lecture us and just talk to them.
Because you are all obviously interesting people. You're lecturers. You've led these lives that have brought you to the level you are now, and we found that we never really. There's not really enough time to get to know someone in a lecture situation or in the brief time whilst digging. So we felt it'd be nice for us personally to get to know you as the lecturers, but also I think what brought it to wanting to be a podcast was the idea that we wanted to share that with other people, especially with freshers and possibly second years and maybe even prospective students. It'd be nice for them to get to know a little bit about the lecturers on an academic side. We've talked a lot about your personal interests within archaeology, but also with the more jokey kind of questions and more sort of a general getting to know you as well. And I feel like the podcast nature of it was to share it with other people. But I think you're right in saying, James, that initially it was a bit of a joke. Like we've got our favourites amongst the lecturing staff, and we always have these little jokes that wouldn't make any sense to anyone else about individual lecturers, and we just kind of thought it'd be funny if we had a conversation with them, I suppose, and then
I think it probably went back to probably end of the first year. We noticed that during the breaks in Nick Forbes' lectures, he would come over to us and sit at our table and start talking
have
about
a chat. Yeah,
good.
I think it just slowly progressed from up there. So
Yeah, that's good.
Well, thank you very much, Simon.
I think that went a lot better than we thought it would.
It did, considering the way that the pilot went. That should be up by now. Mind you, this may end up being up by Christmas time or something, depending on how quickly it gets edited. I really want to ask that question.
Which question is it?
That one.
It's just a weird question.
It is a weird question. We'll end with that. Simon, what is your favourite kind of pie?
Gosh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Or maybe I should try and get James to guess, and then you can tell us. Go on. Look at Simon and just think. What is Simon? What is Simon's kind of pie?
It's not going to be a meat pie.
Clearly not.
Vegetarian. I don't know, something sweet, I reckon, but not too sweet.
So what's he guessing to be?
I don't know a lot about pies. So.
Do you want me to just name a random pie?
Name a random pie.
Apple pie.
Is apple pie sweet?
Yeah, it's sweet. Yeah, no, I don't really. No, not really. I'm not a fan of sweet pies, really. No, sorry.
Well, you got.
I like crumbles. I like rhubarb crumble. If that qualifies as a pie, that.
I suppose
I like that.
It can to give James half a point on the pie scale.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I really like that. I mean, I remember actually my first times when as I mentioned, I was in the Navy. I was in submarines. My first time on a submarine. You know, I'm reasonably young, and I'm sort of, what's going on. I always remember having this apple crumble actually, custard, and it was just fantastic. I always remember that. So I suppose that's my favourite because it's such a, I don't know, it had a very therapeutic effect on me, very calming and
making you forget the fact that you were several hundred metres under the water in a massive metal tube.
Well, that's probably what it was. It was. This is something that's very homely in a way, you know. It's,
what did you actually do on a submarine?
What did I do?
Yeah, because my girlfriend's granddad was a weapons specialist on the nuclear submarine.
Okay. But that's what I was. I was a weapons engineer mechanic.
Oh, okay.
And I was on diesel submarines, but I was responsible for weapons and which is that's what it was.
So have you killed a man? or are we not allowed to talk about that? Well, the Secret Service will be come busting through the door.
Was that back when you still had to have a shot of rum or something?
Well, no, that's right. Yeah, because
I can't remember why.
It was a tot of rum. I can't remember what a tot is, but it was something like a half a pint or something like that. Probably, it was a lot. I can't remember exactly what it was. But
I'll be happy with
in the old days, anyway. But what they would do in the Navy, you would do once you finish your training, and the last part of your formal training in submarines was on the submarine itself, and you do something called Part 3 training, and it could take several months normally. And once you finished that, you did a series of onboard tests and all sorts of things. And when you did it, you were awarded your dolphins, which are your 2 dolphins that you would wear on your breast as a submarine on your uniform, and that was the official sign, if you like, the symbol that you were fully qualified submariner. And the way you would get given the dolphins was in a very traditional way. And for me, it was, I remember on the deck of the submarine, that was obviously above, on the surface in the Mediterranean, and the captain gave me my dolphins in a glass of rum. And what you had to do is drink all the rum from one and hold the dolphins in your teeth as they went down. And that was the way, But so rum was very...
That's a fantastic story. And I think a lovely way to end, although I do want to ask one more thing. You seem too tall to be a submariner.
Yeah, no, it was you get all sorts. I certainly wasn't the tallest.
Really?
I wasn't the largest either. We had one person on board. He was the chief engineer or something, I think, and he would, when we would dive. When you're diving a submarine, you're very balanced. Your tanks, you balance you keep nice and trim, nice and balanced by
in the air and the water.
In the water. And this one individual, very big man, when he would walk from the front of the submarine to the back of the submarine, fore to aft, the submarine would move and you have to compensate in the air tanks. So you get all shapes and sizes. You just adapt to what what you had.
That's a fantastic ending. Thank you very much, Simon.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for hopefully listening to the entirety of episode 1 of Trench Talk with me, Xander,
And me, James.
and our special guest, Simon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.